What if your biggest dream cost you everything? Not just your money, but your time, your comfort, and even your tears. Today, we've got a powerful story about a young man who learned this lesson the hard way. His story is called Nothing is Free. It won't just help you practice your English listening skills, it'll show you the true price of success. Let's begin. In a small, quiet town tucked between tall, green mountains, there lived a young man named Leo. He was only 20, and while his town was small, his dreams were huge. Leo lived with his family in a little house made of old gray wood. The roof leaked when it rained, and the winter wind always found a way inside. His father, Mark, was a kind man with tired eyes and strong hands from his work as a mechanic. His mother, Claire, worked hard cleaning houses, trying to make their small home feel warm and full of love. Leo also had a younger sister, Sophie, who was just 10 and looked at him like he was a hero. Life for Leo's family was a constant struggle. Dinner was often just a simple soup, and new clothes were a rare luxury. Every day, Leo saw the worry on his parents' faces. He saw their exhaustion and their silent sacrifices. He loved them deeply, and a fire started to grow in his heart. He had to give them a better life. He just wanted to see them rest and smile without worry. Leo held on to one dream in particular. He dreamed of owning a bakery. Not just any bakery, but the best one in the whole region. He imagined a place filled with the warm, wonderful smell of fresh bread and sweet pastries. He pictured a cozy shop where families would gather, a place where no one would ever feel the ache of hunger he sometimes felt. His dream felt like a world away from his reality. He'd often sit outside his small house at night, staring at the stars, and wondering how he could possibly start with nothing. "How do I build a dream?" he'd whisper to the quiet night, "when I don't even have the first stone?" This question was the start of his long journey. He knew, with a certainty that filled him completely, that he had to find an answer. Leo knew that a dream without a plan is just a wish. He had no money, and he had no experience. All he had was determination. One morning, he woke up with an idea. It was a small idea, but it was a start. There was only one bakery in his town, owned by a grumpy old man named Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson's bread was good, but he wasn't a friendly person. Leo gathered the few coins he had saved and walked to the bakery. He stood outside for a long time, his heart pounding. Finally, he took a deep breath and went inside. The smell of baking bread was incredible. It was the smell of his dream. "What do you want?" Mr. Anderson asked, his voice rough. Leo's voice was quiet but steady. "Sir," he said, "I want to buy 10 loaves of your bread. I'm going to sell them in the market." Mr. Anderson looked the young man up and down. "And what'll you do when you can't sell them?" "I will sell them," Leo said, with a confidence he didn't feel. "I'll work hard." Mr. Anderson grumbled but sold him the bread. Leo carried the heavy basket to the town market. It was a new and frightening world. Other sellers were shouting, calling customers to their stalls. At first, Leo's voice was just a whisper. He stood for hours and nobody stopped. The sun grew hot. Despair began to creep into his heart. He thought about Mr. Anderson's words. Was he a fool? Then he remembered his family. He remembered the smell of the bakery. He took a deep breath and shouted, "Fresh bread! The best bread in town!" His voice was louder this time, stronger. A woman stopped. She looked at the bread and bought a loaf. That one small sale felt like a huge victory. By the end of the day, his basket was empty. He had sold every single loaf. After paying for the bread, his profit was tiny, just a few coins. But it wasn't just coins, it was hope. Every day fell into a routine of hard work. Leo woke up before the sun, went to Mr. Anderson's bakery, bought the bread, and carried it to the market. He learned to smile at people. He learned to talk about the bread, how fresh it was, how good it would taste. His small profit grew slowly, coin by coin. He saved every single one and spent nothing on himself. While other young men his age were relaxing in the evenings, Leo was counting his coins and planning for the next day. After months of this daily grind, he had saved a small amount of money, but he also understood a hard truth. Reselling bread would never be enough to build his dream bakery. The profit was just too small. He realized he needed to learn how to bake the bread himself. If he could bake, he wouldn't have to rely on Mr. Anderson. His profit would be much bigger. But how could he learn? This led to his biggest sacrifice yet. He went back to Mr. Anderson. "Sir," he said, holding his hat in his hands, "I want to learn how to bake. I'll work for you for free. After I finish selling at the market, I'll come here and do whatever you need. I'll clean the floors, I'll wash the pans. Just let me watch you work. Let me learn." Mr. Anderson stared at Leo for a long, silent moment. He had seen the young man every single morning for months. He had seen his determination. In Leo's eager eyes, he saw a younger version of himself. With a slow nod, he agreed. "Be here at noon," was all he said. Leo's life became even harder. He spent his mornings selling bread and his afternoons and evenings working in the hot, loud bakery. His body ached. His hands became rough and sore from kneading dough. He was always exhausted, but he never complained. He watched everything Mr. Anderson did, how he mixed the flour, how he shaped the dough, how he controlled the heat of the oven. He learned that baking was an art, a science that required patience and precision. Mr. Anderson was a strict teacher. He didn't give out praise easily. When Leo tried to bake his first loaf, it was a disaster, flat and burnt. "A rock," Mr. Anderson called it, and threw it away. "Try again." Leo felt the sting of failure. He wanted to give up. He thought, maybe I'm not good enough for this. But then he remembered his father's words. "Dreams aren't free, son. You pay for them with effort." He realized that every mistake was a lesson. Giving up just wasn't an option. So he tried again, and again, and again. He ruined a lot of bread. Each failure was painful, but each one taught him something new. He learned to feel the dough, to understand its life. At night, he read old baking books from the town library. Slowly, he started to get better. His bread wasn't flat anymore. It wasn't burnt. Then, one evening, it happened. He pulled a loaf from the oven. It was perfect. It had a beautiful golden brown crust, and the smell was incredible. He nervously gave a piece to Mr. Anderson. The old baker chewed it slowly, his face showing no emotion. Then he gave a small, almost invisible nod. "It's not terrible," he said. For Leo, those words were the highest praise. He had finally done it. He had learned the craft. He kept working with Mr. Anderson, perfecting his skill and saving his money with more determination than ever. He built a small, simple oven in his family's backyard using old bricks and clay. It wasn't much, but it was his. The day he sold his own bread for the first time was the proudest day of his life. He carried his own creations to the market. His bread was different from Mr. Anderson's. It was made with a young man's passion, with the memory of every failure and every small victory baked right into it. People noticed. They tasted the difference. More and more customers came. Soon, people were coming to the market just to buy Leo's bread. He was finally on the path to his dream. The seasons changed, and Leo's small backyard operation grew. He was no longer just a boy selling another man's bread. He was becoming a baker. The wonderful smell of baking now came from his own home, a constant, comforting presence. He built a small shed around his oven to protect it from the rain, and his list of regular customers kept growing. His sister Sophie would help him pack the loaves in the morning, her face beaming with pride. His parents, seeing his tireless work and growing success, had a new light in their eyes. The worry was still there, but now it was mixed with hope. Leo had saved almost enough money to rent a small abandoned shop on the main street. He'd lie awake at night picturing it. He'd paint the walls a warm yellow. He'd build wooden shelves for the bread. He'd finally have a real bakery, a place with a proper door and a sign that said, "Leo's Fresh Bakes." The dream was so close he could almost taste it. He felt a sense of pride he had never known. He had built this with his own 2 hands, from nothing.
Then disaster struck. It came on a cold autumn night. A fierce storm rolled in from the mountains with a wind that howled like a hungry wolf and a rain that fell in hard, angry sheets. Leo had finished his baking for the night and gone to bed, tired but content, dreaming of his future shop. In the middle of the night, he was woken by frantic shouting. He ran outside into the chaos. The wind had knocked over the chimney of his makeshift oven. Hot embers had spilled onto the dry wood of the shed. His small workplace was on fire. The flames were eating his dream, turning his hard work into black smoke and ash. He and his father tried to fight the fire with buckets of water, but the storm was too strong and the fire too hungry. They could only stand back and watch, helpless, as everything he had built was destroyed. When morning came, the storm had passed. The sun rose on a scene of devastation. The shed was gone. His beloved oven was a pile of blackened, broken bricks. His sacks of flour were ruined. Everything was gone. All the money he'd saved was for the shop rental. He had nothing left to rebuild. Leo stood in the middle of the ashes, a cold emptiness inside him. He was right back where he started, with nothing. Actually, it was worse than before, because now he knew the bitter taste of failure. The sacrifices, the long hours, the burnt hands, the exhaustion, the whole thing felt like a cruel joke. The phrase "nothing is free" echoed in his mind, but now it sounded like a curse. He had paid the price, he had worked so hard, and what was his reward? A pile of ash. Despair, cold and heavy, settled over him. He sat down on the wet ground, put his face in his hands, and for the first time since his journey began, he wept. Leo didn't move for a long time. The hope that had burned so brightly inside him was now just a cold gray ash, like the remains of his shed. He thought about giving up. The path ahead seemed too steep, the effort too great. He could just go back to a simple job, to a life without big dreams and big disappointments. It would be easier. As he sat there, lost in his despair, one of his neighbors walked over. It was Mr. Henderson, an old carpenter who often bought his bread. He looked at the wreckage and then at Leo. "That was a good oven you built, son," he said quietly. "You have good hands. You can build another." He then placed a few pieces of sturdy wood on the ground next to Leo. "This is a start," he said, and walked away. A few moments later, another person came. It was the woman who had been his very first customer. She was holding a small bag. "This is flour," she said, her voice full of kindness, "for when you're ready to bake again." Throughout the morning, more people came. One by one, his customers, the people of the town who had come to respect the hard-working young man, appeared. They didn't say much. They brought what they could: a bag of nails, a few bricks, a little bit of money. They weren't just customers, they were his community. Then Leo saw a familiar figure walking slowly toward him. It was Mr. Anderson. The old baker stood there for a moment, looking at the mess. He looked at Leo, whose face was stained with soot and tears. Mr. Anderson didn't offer a word of sympathy. He simply held out a heavy cast-iron baking pan. "This one holds the heat well," he grumbled. "Don't burn the bottom of the loaves." Leo looked at the old pan, then at the grumpy baker, and he understood. This was Mr. Anderson's way of saying he believed in him. He realized in that moment that his hard work had earned him something more valuable than money. It had earned him respect. It had built relationships. He hadn't just been building a business, he had been becoming a part of the town's heart. A new feeling began to replace the despair. It was a quiet strength, a renewed determination. He stood up and wiped the tears from his face. He looked at the small pile of wood, the bag of flour, the old baking pan. It wasn't much, but it was more than he had started with. He had a community standing with him. The fire had taken his oven, but it hadn't taken the skill in his hands or the fire in his heart. With the help of his neighbors and the lessons he had learned, Leo began to rebuild. This time, he wasn't alone. Mr. Henderson helped him design a better, safer shed. His father helped him build a new oven, stronger than the last. He used the pan from Mr. Anderson and the flour from his customers. He started baking again, and the familiar, wonderful smell of fresh bread once again filled the air. He didn't just rebuild his backyard operation. With the community's support and a small loan from the town's mayor who admired his courage, Leo was finally able to rent the little shop on the main street. It took months of hard work, but he transformed it into the bakery of his dreams. He painted the walls a warm, sunny yellow and built the wooden shelves himself. He hung a simple hand-painted sign outside, Leo's Bakery. The bakery wasn't just a place to buy bread, it became a symbol of hope and persistence in the town. Leo stood behind the counter of his very own shop, his heart full. He looked at his parents, smiling and proud, and his sister Sophie, who eagerly helped customers. He understood the true meaning of the lesson he had struggled so hard to learn. Nothing is free. The price of his dream wasn't just money. It was every drop of sweat, every moment of doubt, every failure, and every sacrifice. But the reward wasn't just a building made of bricks and wood. The reward was the strength he had found in himself, the wisdom he had gained from his mistakes, and the love of a community he had earned. Leo's story is a great reminder that while dreams might seem free, making them real always has a cost. Every great achievement is earned through hard work, determination, and the courage to never give up, even when you fail. Success is never just given to you, it's built. If you found this story helpful for your English learning and inspiring for your own journey, please like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel for more stories to help you improve your English. Thanks for listening.